over the kind of main thing that we're going to discuss is practical strategies for supporting your loved ones with dementia during the holidays, from creating familiar, calming environments, maintaining routine, pulling in kind of the sensory pieces that mean so much to people who are older and have cognitive impairment, and how we celebrate the holidays while preserving dignity. And really, the emphasis that I have had in the way that I practice is we look at every single person as an individual. They are not a diagnosis. The diagnosis is part of who they are. And so there is no one size fits all answer for what works best for everybody. But there is kind of the things that we want to be cognizant of and see how they apply to your loved one. And really, the goal is to focus on quality over of the holidays, and that might mean that things look a little different than they have in previous years. Um, so, uh, you know, the holidays are a wonderful time of year, and even as our families grow or change, and people are well and they don't have a dementia diagnosis, holidays can feel different. And so, you know, what we, what everybody here is here because they have a loved one who has at least a diagnosis of mild cognitive impairment or a specific dementia diagnosis. And so the goal of all the holidays is to create connection, meaning, joy. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I think that's something that you have to go into the holidays realizing. The best thing we can do is meet our loved ones where they are now. And so what that means is, I think it's natural to think about all the wonderful holidays we've had with loved ones, but as people age, physically, and then they have cognitive changes. Um, they are not always in the same place they was 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. And so, one of the things that's important, and we can talk in our kind of open session, is where your loved one is in their dementia. Are they early stage, middle stage, or later stages? So again, there can be small changes that make a huge difference in terms of what we are doing for our loved one. And so when I say small changes, that could be the time of day that you're having a holiday, the number of people you're celebrating with, just adjusting the location of a celebration. So if you're used to going to your cousin's house with 40 people, it may be that for your loved one, a larger celebration is no longer, it might be joyful for them, but it no longer supports them in terms of where they are in their dementia. And so really looking at how you can either continue to celebrate the way you've celebrated with your loved one, but maybe that means you're doing two kinds of celebrations instead of having one large visit. So again, there's not a one size fits all approach. One of the things that I think is most important is looking at the external triggers that people who have dementia can experience. So most people, regardless of stage, have some kind of external trigger, which means how does the environment impact them? Is there too much noise? Is it too hot? Is it too cold? Are there too many people? Is there too much auditory or visual stimulation? The answer is, for some people, they are greatly impacted by too much stimulation. For other people, they may not be as impacted behaviorally. It might not cause them to be anxious, but it might cause them to be more confused. And so what I recommend before the holidays is really to try to spend some time with your loved one in a busier environment, and assess how they do before you get to a holiday. That doesn't mean, you have to go to a concert, but if you, go out shopping, or you're in an environment where there's a lot more stimulation, really observe how they respond. And again, I always want to make sure we're treating people like an individual. So that is where paying attention to how people respond to the environment before your holiday can be really important. So, if you choose to go to a holiday with your loved one, and again, work with your family on understanding what's best for the person. Time of day, keeping consistent routines is important. I think sometimes a lot of people think, well, it's one day, one holiday, so it doesn't matter if we, keep mom out until 10:30 at night, or if we skip the medication that we left at the assisted living back home. And, my recommendation for after years and years and years of seeing people either kind of throw caution to the wind and seeing people kind of try to follow routines is that people end up feeling most supported and doing best, regardless of the stage, when they do follow a similar routine. So as much as possible, try to keep, time of um, day that they're getting up, time of meals, time of medication, not staying out too late. Try to keep that consistent, because even if your loved one does well in the moment, it is likely that if their whole kind of day is thrown off, they might have a not a great evening once they, get home from a celebration, or the next day might be harder for them. Um, I think the other thing that's really important is we can go into a holiday and not be prepared for what we'll see. So you might think your loved one will do great, and then there's always that holiday or that thing. Hindsight is 2020. So when you go into the holiday, um, go in with a plan. If you notice that your loved one is feeling anxious or more confused, kind of have a plan with your family who's going to be the point person that day, or pick a, Sally will be the point person the first half and Betty will be the point person the second half, and be in tune to your loved one. I think it's really important to have a safe space in your holiday where if you notice someone's getting overwhelmed or frustrated or just kind of not doing well, you can take them to a quieter space. And be prepared on around best ways to kind of communicate with your loved one. So, we talk a lot about reminisce in dementia care. And so as much as we all like to be with our family and talk about what's new and current in our lives, I think for people with dementia, it is really powerful and important to reminisce about past times, past memories. People can participate in reminisce much more when it comes to long-term memories. So I think what I've seen sometimes is people with dementia don't get included as much in discussion, but I would empower people to really try to gear discussion towards those longer term memories with your loved one. You probably have a sense just from being around your loved one around where they are in their memory. Is it that they love talking about when their kids were little? Is it that they love talking about when kind of their parents? And so again, entering their reality. Looking at photos for everybody is such a nice experience. So I'd encourage people to bring photos with them or just have, those longer term memorabilia available at holidays, even if it's bringing along a photo album. Um, Familiarity and comfort are really important. So again, we touched on that. Um, a lot of times where we have holidays is out of our control. It's whoever volunteers to be hosting. However, this is really hard for some families, but I think it's important to think about, is it that you're bringing your loved one to where whoever's hosting the holiday, or is it that you are really focusing on a familiar and comfortable environment for your loved one? The benefits of a familiar environment: it reduces anxiety, confusion, agitation. Um, People do better and cognitively in a familiar space. So, in a high stimuli environment that is new, somebody's confusion may present much more pronounced than when they're at home. And so, again, from a dignity perspective for that person and for that person enjoying the holiday, is that what's really best for them? Sometimes people really feel as long as mom's with the 6 children and 25 grandchildren, things will be fine. And that's not always the case because, again, the environment really impacts how people can communicate and interact with their environment. So again, consider keeping things in a more familiar, traditional location. That doesn't mean if you choose to go to a bigger family celebration, your loved one, you don't have to see your loved one. That means how do you enjoy and celebrate the holiday with your loved one? And maybe that means you're doing a little bit of two holidays in one day. So some things to think about are uh, do you have earlier holiday meals at home instead of, large, noisy gatherings? Or I say early because with most people with dementia, even in earlier stages, evenings are harder. We hear all the time. I'm sure everyone's heard the word sundowning. It's real. Confusion is increased in the afternoons and evenings. And so, I know at least in my family, when my grandmother was still alive, holidays were always at 1 or 2 o'clock. And then now, because we don't have as many seniors, we have our holidays later in the evening. But, it's okay to look at the time of the meal, or again, go do a smaller meal and then kind of celebrate in a different way later in the day. The other thing to think about if you're with your loved one is, again, relating to quality. Um, Everybody doesn't have to visit at the same time. So if your loved one's in an assisted living or memory support, maybe the day is more filled with joy for that person if they have frequent visitors throughout the day versus 15 people visiting at once. Similarly, if your loved one stays home and doesn't go to the bigger gathering, do you have more frequent visitors at home throughout the day? If your loved one does come to a holiday and it's a bigger holiday, I still think that those being aware of how many people are talking at one time or the environment is really important. Making sure you have that quieter space where people can visit and really have a quality visit and communicate and talk versus being in the room where there's 15 people and timers going off and music playing and dogs barking and babies crying. Uh, let's see. Music. So I'm talking a little bit about the senses here because it is a way that you can tap into memories and emotion. And, I think we all around this time of year, we hear a familiar song or we light a candle and smell a familiar smell, and it really brings us back to positive memories and times. And so where people have a little bit more trouble with dementia participating in the discussion or the kind of the ways that we participate, people on this phone call, we really want to make sure that the holidays are a good sensory experience. And so, even if you're bringing someone leftovers, maybe don't put it in the microwave, maybe put it in the oven so that they can smell the aroma of the turkey and the gravy. And, whether or not you're celebrating in a small environment or in a more festive environment, really help your loved one tap into the sensory experience. So whether that's music, make sure that some of their favorite music is playing. The other thing about music and the senses is it helps to reduce, and Christine later can talk more than I can about this. It helps to reduce anxiety, to stimulate memories, to promote joy. And so I think a lot of times there's a focus on interaction is verbal, and that's not true always with somebody who has dementia. They can interact with their environment in a very sensory, meaningful way. Let's see. We talked again about just smaller space. I can't say enough about the environment having an impact on people. Also, just be aware of kind of the environmental things we might take for granted. So, lighting, for instance. If you're kind of you want to make sure that the environment isn't, again, too, like if you have there's a Christmas tree, that you don't have blinking colored lights, those kinds of things we may take for granted, how it can be overstimulating and overwhelming for somebody. Temperature, noise control, all of those things really can make the difference around somebody being comfortable and able to participate in an environment or not. I was at my cousin's for Thanksgiving, and they had a wood stove and it was about 120 degrees. I was able to, take my sweater off or open a window and cool off. Somebody with dementia may not be able to do that. And that's where you might see that they become more, restless, or so pay attention to what's happening in the environment. Is it too hot? Is it too cold? Are they thirsty and they can't get up and get their own water because they don't know, they're in a new environment. Um, and again, participation over perfection. The goal is to have quality connection with your loved one. And so the day may not go flawlessly, and that's okay. I think that, all the things that we're talking about will help to make sure that there is positive connection in the day with your loved one. Um, Also allow people, never correct somebody with dementia. This may be something you all know. But if you remind loved ones at a holiday, if you hear your loved ones telling a story and it might not be completely accurate and somebody corrects them, kindly remind them that it's okay if things are inaccurate. It's all about the living in the moment, not correcting somebody. And then observe subtle cues from your loved one. So are they fidgeting? Are they withdrawing? Are they restless? If they are, there's a reason. So again, just help support them in the environment that they're in so that they can enjoy the day to the best of their ability. We talked about routines, but I'll reiterate, stick to the routine as best you can. Don't skip meals or a nap if your loved one has to have a nap. Don't skip medication, just even if it's for a day. It can disrupt mood. It can disrupt cognition, behavior. Small changes in routine can cause a lot of stress. Even if somebody's memory is impaired, people with dementia intuitively know their routine. So when you deviate from that, whether or not you think they remember their routine, I think you will probably see some changes. Meals. And so sometimes, even in earlier stages of disease, we see changes in meal behavior. Sometimes people have difficulty knowing what utensil to use. Sometimes there are changes in ability to participate in meals, especially if it's a busier environment. So just have somebody next to your loved one who, if they're having some trouble at a meal, can provide assistance in a very subtle, dignified way. Maybe it is that you sit at a four top with your loved one instead of at a table of 15 people. Maybe it is that your loved one eats a little bit earlier than everybody or a little bit later. This may not be needed, but it also is something that I think can surprise people at the holidays because, again, being in a very busy environment can cause people to have more confusion. And one of the things that you may see is it more difficulty at meals at the table when you hadn't seen that before. I also think it's important to know that you might see more confusion at the holidays. That doesn't necessarily mean your loved one has declined in the last 24 hours, but again, it could be the environment. So friendly strategies just to kind of avoid some things that could come up. Try to keep the table setting simple, which can be hard because holidays, people like to make it extravagant. But, one fork, one plate could be the difference between, somebody accidentally using their knife as a soup spoon. So just pay attention to your loved one's place setting. Maybe pre-cut food if you think your loved one may have difficulty cutting their food. Again, it's a dignity thing. How do you stay ahead of a potential situation that could cause embarrassment? Contrasting plates, that just ends up being helpful for anybody. So white plates often are not friendly for people with dementia, but if you have a red plate, for instance, it helps on a white placemat. That contrast helps people be able to eat better. Honor their preferences, especially at me. I think all the time, but especially at a holiday, if somebody, wants to eat cake first, let them eat their cake first. Let's see, smaller portions, just again, fun fact in general for Thanksgiving, or smaller portions are better. Sometimes if you put a huge amount of food on somebody's plate, you're going to see them be overwhelmed and maybe not eat at all. So smaller portions are better. Again, we talked about the sensory connections, really pay attention to smell. Can you put a simmer pot on with, cinnamon, apples, heat an apple pie in the oven. Again, it just helps invoke those positive, nostalgic memories. Um, Let people help, even if they can't in the same way, folding napkins, peeling potatoes, whatever they can help with, it helps one in terms of the sensory input being interacting with the environment. And everybody likes to feel helpful. Good lighting is important, especially in an unfamiliar environment. So make sure that, it's bright enough. Also at nighttime, it gets dark early now. Sometimes a window like that, the shade isn't pulled, can look like a big black hole for somebody. So if you're in a big room and there's 15 windows and that you're not used to having that at home, maybe, see if you can pull the shades. Some people are really impacted by this, other people aren't, but it's a good thing to kind of just be aware of in the environment. Taste, focus on foods they enjoy. Taste can change as well. I mean, I've heard countless times, Mom never liked this, and now that she really enjoys it. So don't get stuck on what people used to like. Allow them to kind of eat what they're enjoying, as long as that's safe for them to do so. We talked about old photos, reminiscing, really, really important with this population. So the core takeaways: this is not about perfection. It's about connection, dignity, thoughtful planning, observing, and observe now kind of how your loved one does, so that you can proactively put some things in place during the holiday to help make their experience as positive and dignified as possible. Really look for their nonverbal cues. Behavior is communication. So if you start to see that somebody's just off, observe, there usually is a reason. Do they need help finding the bathroom? Are they hungry, thirsty, hot, cold? Is it too loud? And then embrace change with compassion, grace, and flexibility. It's hard. It's hard when the holidays change, when things have to change. But again, the most meaningful and helpful thing you can do for your loved ones this holiday season is really meet them where they are and not where they used to be. So that's kind of my high level overview of what we can do at the holidays. And I'd love to hear more from everybody, kind of a little introduction. And we can talk a little bit more in depth about some of the things that we've covered. Do we want to just go around and everyone can introduce themselves, as we have a small group?
That would be great.
Trisha, I'm going to pick on you because I know you.
Okay, great. Hey, I'm Trisha Nelson. I live in Los Angeles. Thank you, Julia, for a great talk. I was pleased to hear that we're on the right track regarding my mom who has dementia, Alzheimer's, early stages. So, but already they've been made clear they don't want to go anywhere for the holidays. Of course, they just moved across country to Massachusetts. So they're kind of like, yeah, we're not going anywhere. So we've invited them, a few places. They went to Buddy's son's for the day after Thanksgiving for a meal. So little that kind of thing they can handle, but they didn't want to come up to Maine to be with us for the holidays. So I'll be visiting them and my partner. And so anyway, point is they've already made it clear they don't want to go anywhere. They don't care if they do Christmas with the family. They're like, they're used to being in Colorado and doing it without the family anyway. So that's kind of helped them acclimate to that. And so when you're talking, I'm like, okay, that's good. Like we don't have some of the things you're sharing about, we don't have to worry about.
Yes.
Yeah, and but I love the suggestion about really trying to bring the conversation back to reminiscing, because we totally get in the loop of when is this happening and when are you coming and when, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And so it's really good to be more conscious of going back. I think that will help a lot. And mom's at the place right now where she's good. Like she'll make it clear she doesn't like a food, or she doesn't like, we're not at the place where we're cutting her meals or anything like that. And they do eat smaller meals. And
Yeah.
so I feel
Yeah.
good, and I got some tips that we can use.
Great. And I think of, Sandy, who's a helper for Trisha's parents. Something so little as Sandy preparing a meal and having the house smell really festive and nostalgic. That is
Yeah,
meaningful and something that I think we take for granted because it doesn't have to be the bells and the whistles and the people, those
yeah,
kinds of little things do make a difference.
yeah.
And I know Sandy did probably prepare a great meal for them. So,
Yeah, and she's used to their portions, which are quite small.
yeah,
I'm usually
right.
hungry when I go there and I eat the
Yeah,
meals that they're eating. I'm like, I need a little bit more
yeah.
food. So,
And
yeah,
and FaceTime too is a great way, right? That even if they can't be there, you can have five different FaceTime calls. And again, that
yeah,
brings the holiday to them. And you're
yeah,
not
yeah,
neglecting them by not dragging them to a holiday. I think
yeah,
that's important for
yeah,
people
yeah.
to.
They're totally fine with whenever we visit, so that's good.
Great,
Yeah,
great.
thank
Thank you.
you.
And you're going to be visiting, you said, Trisha,
Yep.
too, around the
Yep. My
holidays.
partner and I will be there the week of. We'll go to Concord and then we'll take a few days up in Maine to be with my sisters, and then we'll come back to Concord
Nice.
with them, and they're looking forward to that. So,
Great.
And Buddy just turned 91 yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
So, I know.
Good for him.
So that's good.
Good. Well, thanks for being here, Trisha.
Thank you.
Bob, it's great to have you. Do you
Sure.
have any questions for Julia?
I'm trying to work on that. I can tell you that my name is Bob Wallace. My wife is Rachel. She's in an assisted care facility. She's been there going on 2 months now. And before that, we had a period of a month or two where we had 24/7 home health aides here to help her. Rachel's suffering from brain cancer. It was first diagnosed and treated about 3.5 years ago, and with considerable success. But starting this past May, she began what I consider a very rapid decline, going from acting pretty normal to falling, then forgetting, then having more trouble getting around, to the point now where she is in an assisted care facility for 2 months and has very limited ability to recognize the present in her situation. She's constantly with me, wanting me to take her home. Every day she packs up everything there so she can. If I won't take her home, she's going to go find a car. Um,
Yeah.
and that, for me, is incredibly difficult because she doesn't remember a conversation saying, we can't do that. 5 minutes later, we start it again. So we go round and round. We have had some success. Her birthday is today, that we're planning to celebrate on Friday. That moving her out of her room into, like, there's a private dining room where she goes, and we take advantage of that. That's been very helpful. Um, Having photographs or focusing on things that happened years ago is vastly more successful.
Mhm.
I mentioned that we had home health aides here 24/7 for about a month and a half, say in August and September. She currently has no memory of that.
Yeah.
So that is very traumatic for me to get used to.
Mm.
Um, and she's disappearing. I mean,
Mm.
when she first was diagnosed, I asked not her primary oncologist, but another one we we're talking to. He said, well, what happens in a situation like that? I mean, what can we expect over time? And he said, well, quite honestly, people just fade away. And
Mm.
that was something I filed away at the time, but I'm
Yeah.
looking now, and he is right on. So trying to figure out how to cope with that. I'm the
Yeah.
care for getting out of there. Like when my daughter goes or someone else, she might complain about me not getting her out of there, but she doesn't insist that they take her out right now. For me,
Yeah.
it's very traumatic
Mm.
because we go around and around now. So
Sure.
I think that the notion of we'll be staying there. I mean, even at Christmas, we're going to have to arrange something there because we were ever to bring her home, I
Sure.
mean, she she would do everything within her physical and mental power to not leave.
Yeah.
So we tend to have to avoid that. But she does have visitors. She does have
Yeah.
right now a home health aide for 10 hours a day. So we try and do things where she has familiar people around.
Yeah.
I go and see her every day. I think, for instance, on her birthday, we'll be celebrating, unfortunately, at 6 o'clock, but with work days, it's hard to change that. At the facility, at a private dining room with just her immediate family, so about half a dozen people. And I think if we do that and focus on memories and pictures,
Yeah.
that will probably work out the best.
Yeah.
But it also changes radically day to day is the other thing that can be, some days you say, hey, things are feeling almost normal here. But then
Yeah.
2 or 3 other days, it's like, how did I get in this? I mean, it's,
Hmm.
it can be really discombobulating for me as the primary caregiver.
Of
So she's
course.
in a good facility, and I make a real point of relating to the people in the facility. And I encourage anyone in that situation, as I've discovered, to get to know the people who take care of your
Yeah.
loved. And but it's very difficult. And I appreciate your suggestions. The music aspect of things, photographs, smaller areas, quiet, those
Yeah.
all. I
Don't
mean,
correct her ever, right? It's which can be hard, but that's another thing that we catch ourselves in a lot. But sometimes people's reality or recollection of things are different, and that's okay because that's their reality, and we're never going to convince them that, you know,
no, you're
Betty
right. I
doesn't live
mean,
in Alabama or whatever it is.
or that she was walking the hall that night and drove the car, which we sold 2 weeks
Yeah, where'd
ago.
you go? Ask her. Where did you
Yeah,
drive to?
yeah, but it's not contradicting is
No,
very hard. But
it is.
I
Can I
try.
make a comment,
Yes.
Bob? It sounds like you are able to enjoy the moments, to create those moments and be in those moments with her.
Mhm.
And from my experience, she may not remember those moments, but the good feeling is going to stay
Hmm.
with her. And there is benefit to those moments, even if she can't talk about them or she can't express that she remembers them. That feeling, emotions are very intact, and that good feeling does stay with her. So I just wanted to add that because I'm hearing that you're really making those moments. And I think that is
Fine.
a beautiful thing
Yeah.
that you are doing for her, but you also have to take care of yourself because this is just such a hard spot that you're
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a very, very, very
Yeah.
difficult feeling and situation, but right now I'm trying to plan ahead, and what we're talking about now is really going to help with that.
Great. And Bob, I'm
Good.
happy at any time because you're with the practice. If you ever want to chat and
Okay.
personally and have more of a conversation, I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for being here.
Sure.
Who else has a question or a situation or a comment for Julia? Gigi.
Hi, everyone. This has been very interesting, Julia. Thank you very much. My question is sort of in a different tangent, though, and I just wonder if you can speak to it at all. Family members with dementia can, and extended families gather for the holidays, and it produces a lot of dynamics for everyone else, from sadness and frustration and anger,
Mhm.
people having opinions about how things should be done,
Yeah.
and it just that can be and kind of become a theme,
Yeah.
that the person with dementia does not realize or recognize,
Sure.
hopefully. But just
Yeah.
navigating some of those complexities of the family dynamics. I really like the pre-planning piece. And I
Yeah.
was thinking that could do, conversations with the extended family prior to.
Yes.
Uh,
Yep. So that's a great question. You're right. There are so many dynamics. Even if one person, um, for instance, if you left this training with 5 different ideas, you might have a sister who says, no, those aren't the right ideas. And so one of the things that can be helpful is having, support like a care manager, even if just they're on a consulting basis to kind of have these family meetings, and help understand the situation, give best practices, give feedback. Sometimes people can hear things differently coming from, a professional. The other thing that can be done is, you can't control what other people do, but you can go in, even if, for instance, you wanted your loved one, and maybe you could give some examples and I can speak more specifically, but if, let's say, you thought 6 o'clock holiday dinner was not a good idea, but people insisted, you can go in with a plan on what to expect. Maybe mom's going to be more confused, so I'm going to make sure that there's nice music playing by the fire in the other room. And when I see her get restless, I'm going to walk with her and ask her to come with me. These bag of tricks that you can have in place to help de-escalate a situation, even if everyone can't come to the same agreement. But if you want to give an example, I'm happy to try to
Well, one
be
kind
more
of
specific.
almost, comical for some, frustrating and anger producing for another. I'm speaking about my mother-in-law, and my husband is from a large family. And we had gathered at their home for Christmas. She had dementia. And there had been a particular tablecloth that they always used for
Yeah.
the holiday meals. And then she goes and gets, though, the springtime tablecloth.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And she puts that on the table. And I think it's great that she's involved, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But one of the other family members was insistent, no, this is not the right tablecloth. This is
Oh.
not what we use for the winter holidays, So I positioned to just let it be. We
Yes.
have the poinsettia plates on the springtime tablecloth, and
Exactly. Yeah.
it's okay. But
Yeah.
just the ripple effect of that then, or it just creates dynamics to kind of navigate and manage,
Yeah.
all the
And
time.
and this was last year.
Mhm.
And so you're yeah. And sometimes we learn from what happens last year. So, I think what can we, one of the things I think is just having those conversations. And again, you can't, in a situation like that, sometimes the best thing you can do is redirect. So to your mother-in-law, say, what's your mother-in-law's name?
Oh, Mimi. Everyone called her.
Mimi. Oh, Mimi, I need your help in the kitchen. Come with me. Kind of just save her from the scenario. And so sometimes that's what we can do in a really difficult situation is how do you get them to a place that's
Okay.
not in the
Yeah.
stress in the moment. And as much, yeah, and try to provide that education around it doesn't matter, the tablecloth, but we can't change other people either.
Right. Right.
So
Thank you.
what is your plan this holiday season? Where will Mimi
She
be?
actually passed away.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
So we're not dealing with that. So
Yeah.
we're
Oh,
dealing with the same situation. The
yeah.
family is more spread apart now.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. But
Thank you.
thank you for being here. And thanks. That's a really good point about the family dynamics. I'm sure it resonates with probably everybody here that it adds an element of difficulty.
can I say one thing, Julia? I think also that holidays for any family brings up lots of stuff.
Yeah.
If there are losses, if there are dynamics. And so that can make it even harder. Many of, I mean, it's just part of life. It's not just in our
Yeah.
practice, it's just life that there are dynamics in families and it's hard to navigate. I think primary caregivers of loved ones with memory impairment are intuitively protective and advocates. And
Mhm.
having a partnership with someone outside of the family can sometimes get everybody kind of on board with moving in the same direction in
Yeah.
terms of that coaching
Yeah.
piece and their willingness to kind of try things out and see for themselves what that response is.
Mhm.
Um, so we've created in our practice the flexibility that you don't have to be a care management client to get coaching on this very specific type of thing of memory impairment and how it affects relationships. So, because
Mhm.
we see this all the time, that it's hard for people, and your sister-in-law Gigi just might have had her own issues around tradition and why that was so important, and not really tuning into what the needs of your mother-in-law had, but also the lack of understanding is
Mhm.
certainly, it can be a combination of that. So
Yeah.
it's hard. Holidays can be wonderful, but they can be hard too.
Very.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Other,
Thank
sure,
you.
other questions from anyone? Kim has raised her hand. Go ahead, Kim. You're off mute.
Okay, hi there. Thank you very much for this presentation. It's definitely been very helpful.
Right.
Especially the one, the main underlying comment about never correcting someone.
Mhm.
So so it's my dad who has
Mhm.
dementia. He's had it many years. He had early onset probably 10 years ago. He's
Mhm.
93 now. My parents live in an assisted living facility together. My mom is um, okay. She doesn't have any real signs of dementia or anything, but she's worn out, similar
Mhm.
to Rob. Where my dad recently had a fall. He was golfing last year, or in
Yeah.
the summer, I should say, and then in September he had a fall. And since he got out of the hospital, the decline has just increased dramatically. And one of the things that I wanted to ask about, that kind of comes back to this never correct someone, is his frustration over feeling left out of every conversation due to his
Mhm.
dementia, right? And my
Yeah.
mom and I are working together to manage finances and caregiving and aid 12 hours a day now, which he
Mhm.
doesn't think he needs, and lots of things. So one question I had is just, it's very basic, but like when he says he was never part of that conversation, how, and he was, and I know you're not
Mhm.
supposed to correct him, but how do you answer that? Like how do you be
Yeah.
kind about responding, but still making him feel like you know,
Yeah.
I don't even know how to phrase the question, but I think
Yeah. No, I think I'm following Kim. When you say the conversation, give me an example of that. Is it like the decision to have an aide, or what is,
yeah, it
give
could be
me.
the decision to have an aide. It could, yep, that's
Yeah.
perfectly, yep,
Yeah, so that there's a couple things. Validating how he feels, that must be really frustrating. Sometimes just saying, kind of taking responsibility, even if you weren't wrong. You're right. I'm sorry, we didn't get to, talk to you. Yes, that's a kind of a loaded question. Let me start again. One thing that you don't always want to do is reality orient somebody. So he may not think he needs an aid, but spending your time trying to say, Dad, you do need an aid for the next forever because is a losing battle.
yeah,
Maybe instead framing it differently. Dad, the doctor said for the next week, you need some support until you get stronger. That is called a fiblet, which is like a therapeutic framing of things. So instead of reality orienting him to something he can't logically agree with, you are framing it differently. Dad, I'm sorry. We had to get somebody in quickly. I'm sorry you weren't involved in this. You have to have an aide for the next week or so. So that feels very different to him, perhaps, than you have to have an aide forever because you have Alzheimer's and because you fell and because you can't be safe. Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah. And then
It's a framing of something. For instance, before this, I just got off a Zoom. I have somebody moving to a community from home. And because of where she is in her dementia and because of her short-term memory, you know, the framing of that is she's going to go out to lunch, and then she's going to move to the assisted living, and we're not or reality orienting her to the move. And kind of she lives very much in the moment. So some of it is really understanding where the person is in their disease and framing things in a way that isn't always logical or rational, but they can understand and tolerate, and that doesn't upset them more.
yeah, I can envision the next question being, well, when did you talk to the doctor? Where was I? Kind
Yeah,
of thing. So
yeah,
I'm wondering if going forward it might just be a better scenario that my mom and I, when we have to have these conversations, we go out of the room. So
oh
then he
yeah,
doesn't have to.
absolutely.
I mean, I want him
Yes.
to be involved, but at this point, I feel like
Yeah.
it's just detrimental all around.
Yeah, that's hard to have conversations behind somebody's back, but I do agree that having the conversations that he can't really participate in front of him, if you can avoid that, that's best. If he
Okay.
brings it up and says, why is this person here? Again, the other thing you could say is mom needs help. they're here for mom. And sometimes that might be a way that he can hear or see things differently.
Okay. All right. No, that's very, very helpful. Thank you. And I
Yeah.
definitely took away some other
Yeah.
tidbits to give to my mom to hopefully help support her. And I'm assuming, Rob probably feels the same with regard to just, the exhaustion and
Yeah.
the 24/7 having to deal with the changes that are going on.
Yeah.
It's
And
just gotta be
what
really
is your
tough.
mom, what is your holiday plan? And the other thing is it's okay if, try to give your mom permission that maybe it's too much for your dad to come to a holiday. I don't know if it is or isn't, but maybe, he has help. He has somebody there for your mom to have the ability to get some respite, maybe go for a couple hours to the holiday family party, at least that is okay too, that sometimes holidays are different and it's hard, but again, it's meeting people where they are and where and so those are the kinds of things we have to reframe what the holiday means. It doesn't always mean that everyone has to be together at every moment.
Right. Yep. No, we actually had our big holiday at Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And for us is pretty quiet.
Yeah.
So we did have a very large gathering. He did very well.
Good.
But he let us know when he was ready to go. So that worked
Good.
out well.
That's
Great.
impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Wonderful.
sometimes yeah.
Thank you, Kim.
Yeah, no, thank you guys very much.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Julia. I've been a geriatric social worker for 41 years, but I'm always learning from my team. And there's so much good information out there. But I think honing it in where it's things you can implement right now, hopefully is really helpful for you. And we're happy to hear from you if you have other questions.
Hmm.
Since we have a couple of minutes, I would love for Christine Callahan, our wellness specialist, to add in a few tips for things that are in our wellness kind of toolbox. Christine, I didn't ask you ahead of time, but I know that you eat,
Can
sleep,
I
and
just
drink.
Joan,
Yes.
can I make one comment on
Yes.
just the conversation was just had with Kim?
Sure, of course.
And I just wanted to say it's hard. I find it hard to disregard my mother's things that are bothering my mother. Like she made a comment this morning, like, well, because Sandy's using her car. Like mom doesn't drive now, and Sandy's using her car which we need that to happen. She'll make off when she's bothered by something, she'll make a little offhanded, comment. And I know she's like, yeah, well, Sandy's my car. Well, we'll see how long that lasts or something like that. We're
Yeah.
all kind of rolling our eyes, but we just ignore her, like, because there's nothing to say about it because it's not going to change. So I just wanted to say is that, I mean, it feels bad, but at the same time, there's nothing to be gained from going down a rabbit hole in that conversation.
And
Julia.
Trisha, I would just respond a little bit. Validating how she feels. And again, I am a fan of the fiblet, not because it's a lie, but
Yep.
because it helps people feel better in the moment. Like maybe mom, her car's in the shop. So, for this week, she has to use your car. And again, it's okay if you say, no, that feels wrong to me. That's really
Well,
important that people feel.
she already
Yeah.
knows it's her car and Sandy's
Oh,
driving it. Like Sandy
yeah.
drove it across country and is using it now. Like
Yeah.
that.
She
So,
knows it.
so
Yeah.
I think just, oh
You
yeah,
can't
mom,
fix it.
yeah, that must be
Yeah.
hard, mom. It's
Yes,
nice of you to lend
perfect.
her your car.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You're a
Thanks.
better driver, mom.
Yeah.
But you're acknowledging her feeling and then
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
redirect to something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And we will also send you out the recording so that you'll have it as a resource, and it will also be on our YouTube channel and posted on our website as well. We have just a couple of minutes for Christine to add to our toolbox of wellness that can be helpful in the holidays.
Yes, surprise. I have a lot of tips in a blog email that's going out to everyone today, but just a couple of takeaways. I would say it's a very difficult thing for everyone to check your ego at the door and drop the need to be right and for things to be perfect, like Julia said. And it's all about comfort and avoiding discomfort. And especially when things get ramped up over the holidays, we need to put in our own personal boundaries as caregivers so that we don't get burnt out. And then that ripple effect goes to your loved one who may already be stressed or agitated and confused. So if we can eliminate all the distractions, if we can eliminate ignoring them by being on our phones or on, our devices, and then they feel neglected, sometimes that has another ripple effect. So if we are meeting their needs, but also not ignoring that we have our own needs, meeting our needs first, putting ourselves in a very comfortable place so that we can bring the comfort to them, preempting any distress by ensuring that they're properly, hydrated, toileted, fed, all of the other tips that Julia mentioned of the environment, whatever is most comforting to them. Do they love to sing? Do they want to play old music and sing those songs while you're doing Christmas wrapping or whatever you're up to? Whatever you can do to meet your own needs first so that you're in a place of comfort and your mood is better can help when you're frustrated by them, their repetition or their questioning of you. So checking the ego at the door, dropping that need to be right, fall on the sword if you have to, always blame the doctor if necessary, using those biblets and all creating a story, but having a script so that you're not caught off guard and that you have something prepared because you will be questioned. We all know it. It's going to come up. So having something that's a diversion to change the subject. If you do an old psychology trick called pattern interrupt, when they're going and going and going, there is a way to just chime in and say, oh, either the phone rang or I dropped something. Hold on. If you're on a phone call and you just interrupt what's happening, you can reset the conversation energetically by changing the vibration, the vibe, the course of conversation. Hold on a minute. I'm so sorry. Someone's at the door. And then you come back to it with a totally different tone and maybe you're able to change the subject. For some people that can work. And other people, it may not, but you try all different things, add to your toolbox. But please do look for the blog email that'll be going out at some point today. And that is specifically geared toward strategies for self-care over the holidays. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And feel free to be in touch, but we will get this recording out to you. And have a happy holiday. Have a good holiday.
Thank you,
so much. You as
everybody.
well.